I remember it quite fondly how, around the turn of the millennium, when LAN parties were dominated by Unreal Tournament, Quake 3 Arena, Command Conquer, Red Alert, and the first beta versions of Counter-Strike, how one day, seemingly out of nowhere, a charming little action title popped up that washed over the sea of flickering CRT screens like a digital tsunami. Can you say that? Giant's Citizen Kabuto was as ambitious and versatile as it felt unique and fresh. It looked technically stunning at the time, and what most people who do remember it remember most vividly was that it was absolutely hilarious. For a short period of time, it became everybody's favorite sleeper game. In multiplayer matches on LAN parties, when you were positively burned out on low-gravity insta-jib matches on Deck 16, and in the fast-paced and utterly funny single-player campaign. But just as suddenly as it had appeared, a few months later it swiftly vanished from the face of the earth, never to be seen, touched, or heard of again. Well, okay, it's not that bad. You can still get it on GOG and Steam, but it still is one of my favorite forgotten gems. Comedy in video games is rather rare. Well, now that's actually not true at all. There are a bazillion games out there that are overtly comical and funny and heavily rely on humor as a central narrative propellant. But in many cases, the comedy aspect is at least somewhat isolated from the actual gameplay. You often have adventures that tell a funny story, action games with quirky characters, or platformers or real-time strategy titles with a goofy setting slapped on top. What is rather rare are games that fit the description of a pure comedy game as a genre description, meaning that their entire core of game mechanics is built around this comedic shell. Giant's Citizen Kabuto, if you ask me, is exactly that. Everything in this game is crafted with the single premise of delivering the most ludicrously fun experience possible to go hand in hand with the steep and exhilarating pace of its hilarious storyline.
That was a bit more powerful than expected.
It was developed by the now-defunct developer Planet Moon Studios that was founded in 1997 by some of the core creative minds of Shiny Entertainment, who were renowned for the incredibly funny, cynical, and playful MDK series. And their handwriting can be found all over the entirety of Giants. It takes place on a planet called the Island, which is basically one gigantic archipelago planet. Over the course of the single-player campaign, we assume the role of 3 playable characters that control and feel vastly different. It starts out with a group of goofy-looking humanoid soldiers in high-tech battle suits, the Meccarins or Meccs, crash-landing and finding themselves drawn into something like a revolutionary war of the equally annoying and charming inhabitants called the Smarties, against their overly stupid and cruel oppressors, the Sea Reapers. Even though the Meccs make it abundantly clear that they
should have headed straight to Planet Majorca.
But friendly, lovable, and for some reason brashly British as they are, they quickly make friends with the dorky little Smarty population. And as soon as their new friend Timmy gets captured by the Reapers, their sense of honor and duty makes them put the plans for sunshine and beer on Planet Majorca to rest and take on the Sea Reapers to rescue Timmy.
Timmy?
Timmy!
You play as a mech named Baz from a third-person perspective and traverse some really vast open landscapes to fulfill a variety of objectives on your missions. One thing that struck me immediately is how much the gameplay exerts a feeling of fluidity. As a mech, you make use of your jetpack to make your way across the hills and beaches of the island. So most of the time, you elegantly glide, swooping up and down instead of just boringly walking around. It doesn't take long until you get the hang of the terrain and the movement, so you flow fastly, smoothly, and precisely across the landscape. I was really surprised by how great it still feels. Blowing up Rippers with a rocket launcher in midair and tearing through hordes of Sea Reaper soldiers with ridiculous firepower and team effort is just... I can't stress it enough, it's plain fun. The second pillar of what makes Giants so memorable is the sheer variety of things you're gonna do. No mission feels the same. In fact, the game even changes entire genres several times throughout the plot. For example, in some missions, the shooter gameplay even gets mashed up with a pretty entertaining and well-rounded real-time strategy / base building component. You have to gather Smarties to work for you, if they're not idling and drinking beer in the tavern, hunt for food by ravaging through packs of wild game, and gradually build up your base until you can take the Sea Reapers on in their own fortress. But where other games would probably span the Mecc story over the entirety of the single-player campaign, and we'd be fine with it, in Giants it's only the first third. In the second part of the sequential storyline, we play as Delphi, a Sea Reaper herself and the daughter of the evil Sea Reaper Queen. But she's not with her mother, she opposes her terror reign and teams up with the Meccs and the Smarties to fight for their freedom.
Fancy a pint? Thought you'd never ask.
She controls very differently from the Meccs in the first chapters. Being an amphibious species, basically a mermaid with legs, she can swim super swiftly through deep waters and restore health in it. And she can jump across extreme distances with speed, grace, and virtue. This feeling of momentum and speed I described earlier gets really turned up to 11 in this part. With her versatile warbow that packs a plethora of different arrow types, she can almost casually decimate armies of Sea Reaper soldiers. It's incredible how fast you pick up on the game's unique style of movement and how quickly it becomes second nature. This feeling of flow without any constraints, resulting in sometimes ridiculous, over-the-top action spectacle, goes completely hand in hand with the funny, charming, and equally over-the-top tone of the in-game cutscenes. It's a ludicrously hilarious power fantasy. As a matter of fact, when I was recording the Delphi campaign, I noticed that I accidentally recorded almost 6 hours of footage without in-game sound. Only sounds of me breathing into the microphone, occasionally laughing and sometimes angrily cursing. Normally, this would have been an instant table flip, but in this case, replaying the entire campaign to record it again was just so much fun that I didn't really mind. Playing it a second time was just as enjoyable, if not even more, the whole way through. And once again, this comes from the astounding difference in kind the game provides. As Delphi, you have to engage in several base-building missions too, but her completely new movement and control pattern turns it into a whole new experience entirely compared to the earlier tower defense missions with the mechs. And you're also taking part in a series of jet ski races that just get dropped seemingly out of nowhere and end up being funny and thoroughly enjoyable, all with collectible weapons and power-ups a la Mario Kart. And in the final chapter, almost like a power fantasy bonbon, you eventually assume the role of a Kabuto, one of the eponymous giants that terrify and dominate the population of the island. And this chapter, well, it's basically a 6-hour-long kaiju dream come true. Kabuto is a humongous, fierce and towering beast, virtually invincible to common attacks, who effortlessly flattens entire villages and outposts and stomps over entire battalions of Sea Reaper men. Or if he's hungry, he just eats them. All of this, which in and of itself is already a wonderfully enjoyable single-player campaign and would be more than enough to justify shipping the game on its own, it's also possible to enjoy all of it with friends in multiplayer battles. It's like a buy one, get tons of shit for free. Play as Meccs, Sea Reapers, or Kabuto, tear each other apart, or team up against the evil Reaper Queen's hordes. Play classic deathmatch, capture the flag, and other fun modes, or add a little real-time strategy to the blend. Or, of course, compete against each other in exhilarating Reaper ski races that feel like Mario Kart with actual weapons instead of banana shells and turtle peels. The other way around. So, to sum it all up, replaying Giants Citizen Kabuto surprised me by how well this game still holds up. True, the graphics that were absolutely cutting edge at the time are of course aged at this point, but they still maintain a very charming look and feel. But the characters, the dialogue and humor, and the fluid and unique game feel, Honestly, they still felt as fresh as when it suddenly popped up in 2001. Now, I don't do reviews on my channel, and I've said a couple of times on numerous occasions that I'm not fond of an X out of 10 rating system. But if this were a review, then I'd give Giant's Citizen Kabuto a fun out of 10. Okay, that wasn't funny. I don't know why, but this game makes me want to crack jokes even though I know my jokes are terrible. I think the fun out of 10 thing isn't even original. There's probably someone who did that before me. But I hope I could make it a little less of a forgotten gem. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little excursion into video game oblivion. Let me know if you have any forgotten gems yourself you'd like me to cover in this series. If you'd like to support my channel, then I'd be very grateful if you join my Patreon. And as always, my gratitude goes out to all the people who support me there, with a special thanks to these top-tier supporters: Caroline Mills, Simon Anderson, Lucas, Travis Deng, Evan Tekru, Dimitri Pirak, James Lynch, Luke Johnson, Danny Sendel, Dark Blue 1, Tiago Pereira dos Santos Silva from Porto, Portugal, Milan Vojnovic, Carlos Vega, Marissa Martinez, Michelle Stoliker, Kelvin Bombach, Christopher Collish, Nicholas Stevenson, Ronnie Meinert, and Ian Malicon. Bye!